Laz, you mentioned competitive advantage, and I'm just curious real quick, Nate, you have an article up on ESPN.com that F1 plans to discuss a revised point structure, kind of in hopes maybe to shake up the championship. Just what are the possible proposals there, and what have you heard in terms of what they're going to discuss exactly?
Yeah, so this the proposal that is being discussed on Thursday, the F1 Commission, which includes F1 and all the teams, is to extend the points from top 10 to top 12. And basically, it's actually, I mean, what was actually leaked, F1, I think, were quite annoyed that this did leak out, into the media. They want to keep everything from first to seventh down the same, and then basically eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th will basically just have 1 point between each of them, and it just basically will open up some of those opportunities. The argument from the smaller teams is that right now the top five teams are a step ahead of the bottom five. So if they all get everything right every week, it's very difficult for those teams to get points. I mean, there's still three teams, I think, Sauber, Alpine, and Williams, that haven't scored a point yet. Haas have got about five. Obviously, Sonoda's scored about seven for RB, but and that is a counter argument, is that sometimes a freak result can propel you up the order. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? So I think the small teams want it, and the reason they're keeping the top 7 points the same. So for anyone, this is going to be quick fire maths for me. So it's 25, 18, 15, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 1.
You missed 12, I think.
Nice.
But...
Sorry, yeah, I missed 12. I did miss 12. And that's thrown me completely. Yeah, so now from so eighth is 4 points, 2 points, 1 point. So that will now be 5 because there's a gap, 6 to 4, 6 points for seventh, 4 points for eighth. That will now become 5 points for eighth, 4 points for ninth, 3, 2, 1. So you're basically upping it like that.
Zach, put a graphic up if you can, so people can visually, if they're watching on YouTube, understand and follow what Nate just presented, please. Okay.
See, when I was writing that article, it made so much sense, and when you actually say it, but I think it's a good one to discuss actually, because. And I'd be fascinated to see what Lawrence says about this. Points changes. F1's changed points before. The last one was 2010, which is when this current rule change came in. It also changed, I think it was 2002 or 2003, when Schumacher was dominating. Went from 6 points, top 6 score points to top 8 score points. And it is interesting because, I think while there's a very good argument to be made for the small teams to score points, it does also suggest that maybe F1, the fact they're talking about this and having it happy for it to be discussed, it suggests like, well, the racing isn't maybe as thrilling as it needs to be. We need to have more reasons to talk about stuff lower down. I'm not against it at all, but my view would be if you're concerned about the small teams getting points, just give everyone points. Have 20th down at the first down to 20th have points, and just scale it in a way that's fair. Because at some point, we've gone 6, 8, 10, 12. You'll do another 10 years of this. You'll be the top 14 should score points. So I don't know. It's interesting, but the teams are discussing it, and I think they can defer the vote for later in the year and just keep discussing it. And from what I hear, that seems more likely what they'll do at this point.
I'm not against it. I think it actually makes a certain amount of sense. Why you've got a situation where you have 5 very competitive teams. At the moment, we've got Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Mercedes, Aston Martin. It does lock out those points positions at most races, depending on what's happened to Lance Stroll over the race weekend, as Nate has mentioned before on this podcast. And so opening it up a little bit more, I think it will give a fairer picture in the Constructors' Championship as to how those teams have done that are regularly finishing outside the top 10. I could also see the logic, as Nate said, to run it all the way down to 20th. But I think, if you're saying, if you're in the bottom 8 of a Grand Prix, maybe you don't deserve to have points, and 12 upwards you do. It's all a little bit, kind of pick whatever you want, really. But I don't see a downside to it, because the points at the front don't change. So those previous points changes that Nate mentioned, the ones at Schumacher time and then thereafter, they actually changed the nature of the points between first and second and so on. So wins weren't as valuable or became more valuable. And I think where we have it set now is the right kind of value for first to second place. So that's not changing. Okay. So I see just giving an extra, essentially 2 points, and then, there's a few more points on offer for 8th and 9th. I just don't see it as an issue at all. I think they should do it. And I haven't worked out if there'll be any unintended consequences. But if there are, I'm sure they're the sort that everyone can live with, because as Nate alluded to as well, the issue here is not really who you're giving points to. It's just how competitive and exciting the product is to watch. And I think, changing these points won't solve that, but equally it won't do any harm. So yeah, I think go with it, and then let's look longer term at how you can have a situation where a team like Williams can go into a race weekend with the potential to score better points, and also we can go into a race weekend not knowing who's going to be on top of the podium.
Yeah. Also, as well, for some place, I mean, you could probably argue this is the case anyway, but getting through to Q3 and stuff like that, like if there's more points on offer, a top 10 start is suddenly a little bit more valuable, because you can play around with the strategy and be like, right now, we just got to make sure we're top 10, not, top 12, not top 10. So there's definite benefits to it. And I think the proposal is smart, because like Lawrence said, it hasn't alienated the top teams. So I actually imagine this will be something that comes into force. I haven't really heard any suggestion there's big opposition to this. It does seem like everyone is kind of on board with it. I think it might just be like the finer points of it. Some of the teams might argue little bits here and there, but and just in case anyone's wondering, after my brilliant summary earlier, the fastest point will stay the same. Fastest lap point will stay the same. It'll just be for the top 12. So if you finish 12th now and you take the fastest lap, you will still get a bonus point.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.